Thank you very much for having me today. Some of you might remember that I was here 4 years ago when I introduced reclamation within the Parks and Protected Areas network of Alberta. I'm back here today to provide a bit of a refresher and an update on our process. Quite often, there is confusion when I say that I work for Alberta Parks Division. Sometimes people think of Banff or Jasper or even our municipal parks. One of my first challenges is to ensure that everybody has a clear understanding of the land base that I'm talking about. How many of you have ever visited a provincial park, maybe for camping or fishing? Wow, awesome. So the chances are that you have a pretty good understanding of where we are on the land base. But I'm going to run through a little bit of land ownership and management within the province of Alberta. Here's our private land layer. Then we throw in the federal lands, and this is where we can throw in our national parks like Banff and Jasper. Then we have my layer, yay, Alberta Parks. This is us, Alberta Parks and Protected Areas. The rest of the white is all the Crown land under the Public Lands Act. So this is the layer I'm talking about today. The Alberta Parks and Protected Areas network is made up of 476 sites, approximately 4% of the land base. We have everything from provincial parks down to natural areas within those 472 sites. So where to find this data information? It's critical when you are planning a reclamation project that you know where you are on the land base. We have a couple of ways that you can find this information. One is you can go to our website, www.albertaparks.ca, and it's kind of buried in our website, so it's not very intuitive to try and find that information. Or if you use Abidata, and here's a plug for Abidata. If you use Abidata, it is a layer within their data system, but it's not that easy to find. So first of all, you have to select terrain, and then you have to select parks and areas to turn that layer on. And this is what it would look like once it comes up on your screen. Now, here's an example of a well site within Caribou Mountains Wildland Provincial Park. So if you hadn't turned that layer on, it would just be a well site on Crown land. But by turning the layer on or by doing your research and maybe checking the land standing report, which is also not intuitive, you would find out that this is actually in a wildland provincial park, and it is under our jurisdiction and our administration. So, did you know that we have well sites and pipelines and all other kinds of infrastructure and yuck within our provincial parks in Alberta? In fact, there are over 1,000 well sites and in total over 3,500 bits and pieces of oil and gas infrastructure in our parks. All of that at some point needs to receive a reclamation certificate. Now, while AER is the distributor of reclamation certificates, the Alberta Parks people, our system, we need to have the ability to contribute to the discussion of reclamation in our sites. So what we've developed on our website, we've spent months and months and months putting together this wonderful flow chart. Now, I know you can't read it. This is one of those cardinal rules I'm breaking of too small a font, but I am going to walk through this flow chart because it is quite important, and it drives all of the reclamation within the park system. But if you wanted to find this, this is where you would find it on our website. So here we go. We're going to start by, okay, so you have a reclamation project, and the first thing that you have to do once you've discovered that you're in a park is you have to stop everything and you have to make sure that you talk to the Alberta Parks Land Use Officer. We have several of them, well, 6 or 7 around the province. Each has their own region. And one of the differences, or one of the unique abilities of the park staff is that we are able to visit 100% of all reclamation activities in our sites. Our parks land use officers know every one of their parks intimately, and they are probably the most knowledgeable person to talk to. Also, the reason why it's important to talk to our land use officer is because there could be a different kind of management plan. And I know there were a lot of presentations earlier today and yesterday talking about changed end land use. Sometimes there is a different need for a well site in a park. So here we go. You're speaking to the land use officer, and is it accepted? No. Okay, so you have to go back. You revise, and then you resubmit. So is it accepted? You guys have talked about it with the land use officer, and he says or she says, yep, go ahead, this plan looks really good. So you go ahead with your plan. And once again, it's in consultation with the park's land use officer. And time goes on, and you're monitoring it, and then it comes time to, you're ready to almost submit your application to AER. You do a final site visit with the land use officer, and he or she will ensure that, yep, it's okay, it's acceptable. Oh, wait a minute, no, it's not. There's something wrong with that site. There's still weeds on the site, so you have to go back and do a little bit of revision and resubmit it and go through the process again. But hey, wait a minute, now this one here is passing. This is where you can submit the application to us for the 30-day review period. And this is kind of critical, because if you miss that part of the application process, and if you don't send it to us for review, chances are your application will not be approved. It can get expensive, and it can take a long time. So here you're going along, and we have accepted it. So, oh, but wait a minute, we haven't accepted it. What do you do then? If we don't accept it, you go back, make changes, and then resubmit it. If it has been accepted, now it is time to submit it to the AER. This is where it gets a little bit vague for me, because AER is a fairly new process with parks, and we've just started to open up the dialogue on and move more smoothly with aligning both of our processes. AER reviews it, and once again, it can either be accepted or not. If it's not, it's revised and submitted. If it is accepted by AER, then you will get your reclamation certificate. We will get a copy in parks of that reclamation certificate, and finally, you are done. This past week, I had an email from someone at AER, CC to me, and it was to a client whose application had been rejected. And the reason why it was rejected is because they hadn't done any of this information. They hadn't submitted it to us. And in fact, we were left right back here. They hadn't done anything. So we were left completely out of the loop, and the application was sadly rejected. So now the company has to kind of backtrack and come to us. It wastes a lot of time. It's much better if you start at the very beginning and introduce us to your project right at the very start. I'm guessing that might be news for some people here, that Parks does have the ability to determine what we want on our land base.